In the second of our two profile interviews with Sheila Ross, we turn to talking about unity ideas, unity faith, particularly as it relates to the modern world. And I began with a question to her about how we cope with the challenges of today as members of the Unity Fellowship.
Terrible, pain and suffering in the world that we see on the TV screens and so on, read in newspapers. How do you relate that? Because I get a sense that you have a very hopeful, faith-filled perspective on life. But how do you cope when you open a newspaper or listen on the radio and you hear of 200 girls being abducted in Africa? I mean, how do you relate unity to those kind of areas of real challenge?
Many cultures have words for what A Course in Miracles calls illusion. And I think it's Hindu is Maya, and samsara is another one. There are a lot of words for this. So it's pretty universal that there is another way of seeing besides what's interpreted by us with the senses. And I believe that human consciousness creates suffering, whereas higher mind, which is called spirit mind or Christ mind by Unity and many other metaphysical mystics, is really, that is what our potential is, and where many of us are spending more and more of our time. I believe if you want lasting happiness and peace, the way the universe works is to be in that higher mind. It eliminates selfishness. It eliminates all these causes of grief in the world and all the fighting and everything that causes us pain. It's known by many people in the medical profession now that our minds cause our physical disabilities one way or another. And if the mind is truly the cause, and mind, according to Roger Sperry, the #1 neurologist in the United States, who won the Nobel Prize for right brain, left brain, said afterwards, never mind left brain, right brain. Spirit and mind are the same thing. So I think we have to release these illusions and say, we don't know what this is for. We have no idea, but we know that abundant blessings are behind everything that happens.
So, that seems to be saying that our way of responding to these challenges in the world around us is essentially our own responsibility to live our life, to follow our truth.
Yes.
And our faith. So, and by transforming our life and the way we think and feel, we therefore change the world. If you see, does that sort of represent it? Do you want to comment on that, or shall I?
Well, I can actually, because it brought to mind some of my favorite teachers who
Just checking out your
want us to take full responsibility for everything we experience, which is logical to me, but also to be easy on ourselves and realize that this inheritance comes from everywhere for endless time, and it's not something that's quickly overcome by most. And so if we find ourselves falling into grief or resentment or anything negative, we should embrace ourselves in these feelings, not resist and fight them, embrace them. And then we have a different way of releasing. It's not burying or getting rid of them temporarily, but just really giving them the recognition for being what's going on at the time, accepting whatever is, and then it can be released much more effectively. I really think that people have to treat themselves with love no matter what. It's very important. Otherwise, how can we love anyone else?
I mean, it seems that's a very powerful message about how we can grow as human beings. How do we communicate that message to the, because to the people in the tube train who are looking at their mobile phones and absorbed in their worries and anxieties and all of their illusions. I mean, how does this transformation, this idea of transformation and faith and truth, how do we get it out there, do you think? It's a big question.
Well, I really believe that what will come to eventually is non-words. I trust that a lot because there are many situations where it just would not be appropriate, would not be welcome by the people that you'd like to say things to, that you believe, and if only they would, kind of things. You couldn't really justify doing that, because if someone isn't ready, that's okay too. And so just being, remembering who you are and who they are, they can feel that. I'm sure of it. Plus languages, if you look at them, how they chop up reality in so many different ways. And what are these meaningless fragments? If you try to match up these languages, take a fragment, a sentence, and translate it, you get a rough idea. You don't get an exact translation ever. There's no identical meanings because of the way reality is chopped up. It can't be done. So we rely too much on words, I think. Even Pierre Teilhard Chardin said, we're going to evolve to where we don't need words. That would be wonderful, I think.
So you feel that we simply, well, not simply, but we need to, in a kind of experiential way, we grow within ourselves and within our relationships and within the way that we go through each day.
Yes.
And that is all we can do in a way. Am I interpreting it the right way? That we can't go out and preach about it in the squares and in the town halls. We just have to live it. Is that how I?
I totally agree. I think love waits on welcome, Marianne Williamson said, and how true that is. If we welcome love, God's love, we will be doing it for the world. And we don't know how this works, but it does. Every moment we focus on love is just hugely beneficial to everyone. And if you believe all are one, that's easy to understand. My mentor, who was a famous scientist studying consciousness, has said that our minds are linked, and so have many other famous people. Salk, who discovered penicillin. They all have said that minds are linked. When they get far enough down the science road, they can see that. And so it's very encouraging that people can have whatever individual way they have of getting to God, and it's fine. They'll get there.
What if, just being devil's advocate for a moment, what if someone said to you, well, that's all very well, Sheila, but you're saying that there's nothing we can really do, that we simply, but yet you work on the prayer line, so you undertake actions there, don't you? So what do you think about action? What's your feeling about action?
I think it's critical. I think action, how you live your life and what you do with your life in service to others, if that includes your faith, that is extremely powerful and beneficial to the planet, I believe. More people will focus on what you're saying if there's a little spark of willingness. That comes from that God-implanted spark that wants to experience God, and a little bit of it makes us want more. So I think if we can be there for those who want it, that is huge. We can't make people want it who don't.
Coming back to the prayer line, in a way, that is a kind of ideal, a sort of paradigm, because you're offering a service to people. Obviously you have to advertise and make sure people know about it, but essentially you wait upon their need.
Yes.
You sit in the room, and then when the call comes in, you're not proselytizing, you're not peddling some message, you're just I'm sort of reflecting back what I think you're saying, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
That you, by being yourself and your truth as best you can, that is what you offer, and then you enter into a sort of dialogue or communion with this person, and that's what becomes transformative.
Yes, I think you said it very well. I have just realized I've made exception to that rule. There are always exceptions. There are a couple of people who call who want to challenge the idea of what we hold true, and they want to argue. And it's very, very interesting because to argue on an intellectual level misses the point of prayer line. So eventually the two juxtaposed channels of awareness do come together in spirit, but sometimes they do start out on a more intellectual level, because that is responding to the current need, the need of the moment. And then when the need of the moment changes, even a little, the door opens just a little for that light of spirit, then off we are.
And sometimes, of course,